In this lesson, we're going to go over image acquisition under Windows. Now, again, when you're doing an image acquisition, what you're doing is you're trying to acquire all of the data off either a hard drive or a particular partition off a hard drive, or sometimes you may have something like a USB stick or an SD card or some other type of external storage. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is you are trying to acquire all of the data off whatever that storage device happens to be, and ideally, you would be generating some sort of hash value from that data so that you can verify its integrity and authenticity later on. Now, what I've got here is a utility called FTK Imager, and we can use FTK Imager to create a disk image. So in this case, I want to use a physical drive, and the physical drive that I'm going to use is this SanDisk Cruiser USB device. So I'm going to add an image destination. I'm actually going to use DD, so I'm just going to use a raw image here. We're going to give it a case number and an evidence number. So this has to do with logging it into evidence. Now I can store this. Let's open up libraries here, and I'm just going to store it in documents. And the file name is going to be USB stick. That's okay. Now I'm going to click finish, and we're going to do start. And this is verify images after they are created. Now this is going to go chugging away, creating the image, and what it's going to be doing is going bit for bit through this USB external drive, creating a file on my hard drive that is bit for bit the way that USB stick is. So all of the data that's on that USB stick is going to be arranged in this file exactly the way it is on the disk. I'm not just going to get a collection of the files, I'm also going to be getting all of the slack space, I'm going to be getting all of the empty space, I'm going to be getting the file tables, I'm going to get everything that's on that hard drive exactly the way it is, bit for bit, and it's going to be stored in this file that I've created here called USB stick. Now I'm using Access Data FTK Imager, and what I could do is I could actually log this into a case for FTK. I could create a piece of evidence. Now, the other tools that we have looked at or will be looking at in additional lessons have similar image capabilities. I could actually acquire images using ProDiscover or EnCase. They all have the ability to acquire evidence from these external hard drives. That's one of their core functions, is to be able to do that evidence acquisition. Now, I used FTK Imager here in part because it's really solely dedicated to just doing these images, which doesn't make it any better. It's just this is the only thing it does, and so we're not distracted by the other capabilities that we have in these other tools. So what we're really only looking at here is we are looking at just doing a capture of this one particular file. Now this is going to go chug away for quite a while, and at the end I'm going to have this 32 gigabyte file sitting on my hard drive where I've got all of the data. As I mentioned earlier, I've got all of the data from that USB stick sitting on my hard drive in a raw image file format. And we've looked at these raw image file formats before where it looks exactly like a physical hard drive. So under Linux, for example, I've shown you in other lessons how if I use the file command, it actually brings up something that says boot sector. So it looks exactly like a hard drive would look. So again, I'm going to have all of the data once I'm done here that lives on this hard drive, every little bit of it, including deleted files, including overwritten spaces or spaces where files used to be, I'm going to have every little bit from this USB stick sitting in this file once I'm done, and then I can use that file to work from to investigate the evidence, and I'm no longer working from the original source material. I now have this piece of evidence that I can look at and investigate without touching the original source material, just in case I ever need to go back to it and reacquire it again if for one reason or another I've done something to this piece of evidence that I've got here. So that's one of the advantages of creating these images, is I've got something to work from where I'm not worried about whether I'm going to destroy the evidence or not.